Armand had always been curious about strange places, and that curiosity was the reason he stepped off the small transport ship and entered the interplanetary trade hub. He had visited many markets before, but this one felt different. It was bigger, brighter, and filled with many species he had never seen. Some walked on two legs, some floated, and some communicated through soft musical tones. Everywhere he looked, there were colorful lights, small shops, and people bargaining loudly. He had no plan. He simply wanted to explore and maybe find something interesting. As he moved through the busy pathways, he noticed how each shop tried to attract customers. One stall displayed glowing stones, another offered small mechanical pets, and another showed beautiful maps of galaxies far away. The air felt warm, and the sound of hundreds of voices blended into a single soft hum. Armand was about to walk toward a shop selling rare travel gadgets when something unusual happened. He heard a faint whisper, so soft that he almost thought it was his imagination. He stopped walking and looked around, but no one seemed to be calling him. He shrugged and continued walking. But after a few steps, the whisper came again, this time a little clearer. "Please, purchase me, human." He froze. There was no mistake this time. Someone had spoken directly to him. He slowly turned his head and scanned the area. Then his eyes landed on a quiet corner of the market that looked different from the rest. Instead of bright stalls and cheerful vendors, this corner had transparent containment barriers separating individuals who stood quietly, waiting for someone to approach. Armand felt a strange discomfort in his chest. He didn't like that part of the market. It didn't look like a place for trade, it looked like a place for people who had lost their freedom. And then he saw her. She stood behind one of the transparent barriers. Her posture was straight, almost like a trained soldier standing at attention. Her hair was silver blue, her eyes sharp yet filled with a softness that didn't match her surroundings. Her clothes were simple, but her calm expression made her stand out. She looked like someone who had lived a disciplined life. Armand could not explain it, but even from a distance, she seemed different from the others. She carried an air of strength, not weakness. Armand stepped closer, and her eyes met his. There was no fear in her gaze. Instead, there was a quiet request, almost a silent hope. He felt his breath catch for a moment. He had never seen someone look at him like that. He opened his mouth to ask if she had spoken, but before he could say anything, she whispered again, just loud enough for him to hear, "Please purchase me."
All right.
Her voice was steady. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't broken. It sounded more like a formal request, the way someone might ask for a duty to be assigned. But her eyes told a different story, one of tiredness and longing for something better. Armand swallowed, unsure of what to say. He didn't understand her situation. He didn't understand why someone who looked like a warrior would ask a stranger to buy her freedom. He looked around to see if anyone else had noticed, but everyone was busy with their own business. Nobody paid attention. He stepped closer to the barrier and spoke softly. "Why me? Why are you asking me?" She blinked once, as if surprised that he asked. Then she lowered her eyes for a moment before answering. "Because you stopped. And you listened." Armand didn't know what to think. He had only paused because he heard her voice. But she said it as if it meant something more. He looked at the label on the corner of the barrier. It said she was listed as a labor assistant, which didn't make sense at all. Nothing about her appearance or presence matched that description. Just then, the merchant approached. He was a cheerful-looking man with a wide smile, but his eyes didn't show much warmth. "Ah, I see you're interested," he said brightly. "Very well trained, very calm, perfect for work that requires discipline." Armand frowned. "She spoke to me. She asked me to buy her." The merchant shrugged casually. "Some individuals do that. They want a better life. She is harmless, I assure you. Completely safe." Armand didn't believe that she was harmless simply because the merchant said so. He could tell she carried a quiet strength. Even the way she stood still, balanced and alert, told him she had once trained in something difficult. He turned back to her and examined her face closely. He noticed faint lines near her temples, like marks from an old helmet or uniform. He also saw a small scar near her wrist knot, dangerous looking. It's just a simple mark that hinted at experience. She remained calm, waiting for him to speak. "Who are you?" Armin asked gently. "I am called Kayla," she replied. "I once served my people." She paused, as if choosing her words carefully. "But not anymore." Her answer made Armand feel even more uneasy. He looked over at the merchant again. "Why is she here?" The merchant only smiled. "Stories are stories, friend. If you want details, you must be the buyer." Armand disliked the reply. He didn't want to treat someone like merchandise. But Kayla quietly raised her hand, just slightly. Not enough to draw attention from others, but enough for Armand to notice. She whispered again, "Please." That one word carried a weight he could not ignore. It was not the voice of someone begging. It was the voice of someone asking for a chance. Armand felt torn. He had not come here to get involved in anything complicated. He had not planned to spend money on something like this. He was just a traveler exploring another strange place. But now he could not walk away. Something about Kayla's calm strength and quiet hope held him there. He took a slow breath. "If I purchase you," he said, "what do you want from me?" Kayla looked directly into his eyes, and for the first time her expression softened. "Freedom," she said simply. "To leave this place." Her words were gentle but carried a meaning that touched Armand deeply. She did not ask for safety, comfort, or special treatment. She only asked to be taken away from the market. Armand stood silently for a long moment. He could feel something inside him shifting. He didn't know her story. He didn't know why she had been placed here. But he could tell she trusted him enough to ask for help. The idea of walking away now felt wrong. He finally nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "I'll get you out of here." Kayla didn't smile widely or react dramatically. Instead, she bowed her head slightly in a respectful, disciplined way, the way someone might thank another without words. Armin felt a strange sense of relief, as if he had made the right choice. The merchant clapped his hands happily, eager to finalize the transaction. Armand completed the necessary steps. Still unsure of everything, but confident about one thing: Kayla did not belong in that corner of the market. Once the barrier opened, Kayla stepped out slowly. She didn't run, didn't rush, didn't show any panic. She simply walked forward with quiet grace, standing beside Armin as if she had already decided that he was someone she could rely on. Armin looked at her, still feeling the weight of the moment. "You're free now," he said softly. Kayla lifted her eyes to him. And for the first time, he saw a hint of real emotion, something like relief, mixed with deep gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "I will not forget this." Armand didn't know it yet. But this single decision, the choice to stop, listen, and help was the beginning of a journey that would change both of their lives in ways he could not imagine. Armand guided Kayla out of the busy market area and toward a quieter walkway. Even after leaving the noisy crowd behind, she stayed close but silent, her steps steady and controlled. She didn't look confused or afraid. Instead, she appeared observant, almost as if she were studying every corner, every sound, and every movement around her. Armin could tell she was used to being alert. Even when nothing seemed dangerous, he didn't want to overwhelm her with questions, but he wanted to understand her situation. He glanced at her, wondering how to start the conversation without making her uncomfortable. "You don't have to be so formal now," he said softly. "You're free. No one is watching you." Kayla looked at him calmly. "Formality is part of me," she replied. "It is how I was trained." Her voice was gentle, but Armand could feel a story behind those words. A long, complicated story she wasn't ready to reveal yet. He nodded and continued walking, giving her time. They reached a small resting area near a set of transparent walls that showed the view outside the trade hub. Bright stars floated in the distance, and ships of all shapes passed by quietly. Kayla paused to look at the view, and Armand saw a soft shift in her eyes, something like nostalgia. "You've been to space often?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I traveled with my unit. We moved often. We protected our borders and people." Armand hesitated. "Your unit? Was that before you came here?" Kayla nodded slowly, before everything changed. He felt a gentle weight in her words. They sat on a bench nearby, and Kayla rested her hands neatly on her lap, sitting straight as if still in training. Armand appreciated her calmness, but also felt a quiet sadness behind it. He took a careful breath before asking, "Can you tell me what happened? Why were you at that market?" Kayla didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down at her hands, studying them as if searching for the right explanation. After a long moment, she began speaking, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a quiet honesty that made Armand listen closely. "I once served as a defender," she said. "My people trusted me with important responsibilities. I've trained for many years. I was honored to protect them." Armand listened without interrupting, but one day she continued gently, "I made a choice they did not approve of. I spoke against a decision that I believed was harming innocent people. Some leaders did not like my voice. They said I disobeyed." Armand understood. "So they removed you?" Kayla looked up, her eyes calm. "They removed my position. It took away my rank, and without rank, I had no protection." Her words were simple, but the meaning behind them was deep. Armand could imagine how hard it must have been for someone who lived with honor and discipline to suddenly lose everything because she spoke her heart. "That's unfair," Armand said softly. "Fairness is not always found in those who hold power," she replied. He nodded. "So you left your home?" "I had no choice," she answered. "Without protection, I became an easy target for anyone who wanted to take advantage of my situation." Armand frowned. "Is that how the merchant found you?" Kayla nodded once. "I was alone. I did not have food or direction. The transport crew offered me passage, but instead of helping, they traded me to the market." Armand felt his chest tighten. He didn't know the full details, but he understood enough. Oh, Kayla had lost her place, her freedom, and even her safety, yet she still spoke with quiet strength, never sounding angry or broken. "You didn't deserve that," he said. Kayla looked at him with a calm expression. "Deserving or not, it happened. What matters now is that I am no longer there." Armand could hear gratitude in her voice, even though she didn't say it directly. He appreciated how strong she was, even after everything she had gone through. "Why did you ask me?" he asked suddenly. There were many people walking around. "Why me?" Kayla surprised him with her answer. "You looked at the people in the barriers differently. You did not look at them like objects. Your eyes held concern, not curiosity." Armand blinked, not expecting her to notice something so subtle. "I didn't even realize I looked any different." "You did," Kayla said gently. "And when I whispered, you listened. You didn't walk away. Many would ignore such a sound." Her words warmed him. He didn't think he had done anything special, but to her, his small actions meant something important. "What do you want to do now?" he asked. "I mean, now that you're free." Kayla looked silently at the starry sky through the transparent wall. Her eyes softened again. "I want time," she said. "Time to understand what my life will be without my old duties. Time to learn how to live differently." Armand nodded. "You can take all the time you need." Kayla turned her head and looked at him with quiet appreciation. "You freed me," she said, "but you did not ask anything in return. So that is unfamiliar to me." "You don't have to give me anything in return," he replied quickly. "Helping you wasn't a transaction." Kayla nodded slowly, absorbing his words as if they were new to her. She looked around the quiet walkway and took a deep breath, as though feeling real freedom for the first time in a long while. After a few minutes, Armand stood up. "My ship is not far. You can stay there for now. It's not big, but it's safe." Kayla rose gracefully, her movements smooth and controlled. "Safety is more than enough," she said. They walked through the wide hallway, passing shops and travelers. But this time, Kayla walked slightly behind him, not because she was afraid, but because she still carried her disciplined habits. "You can walk beside me," Armand said gently. Kayla hesitated, then took a step forward so she was walking at his side. Armand smiled a little. For the first time since leaving the market, she looked almost at ease. As they moved toward the docking area, Kayla suddenly paused. Armand stopped and turned to her. She was looking at a group of travelers passing by, a mix of species laughing together, carrying supplies, and talking about upcoming journeys. Her expression changed slightly, like she was remembering something. "What is it?" Armand asked. "I used to walk like them," Kayla said softly. with purpose, with belonging. You still can, Armand replied gently. Maybe not in the same way as before, but in a new way. She looked at him for a moment, then nodded. They continued walking until they reached Armand's small ship. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm and well-kept. When the doors opened, Kayla stepped inside carefully, observing everything with curiosity and respect. "You can rest anywhere you like," Armand said. "You're safe here." Kayla looked around, then gently touched the wall of the ship, as if feeling the presence of a peaceful place for the first time in a long while. "This feels different," she said quietly. "Different how?" Armand asked. She thought for a moment. "It feels like a place where someone chose to help me, not take something from me." Armand felt his heart soften at her words. Kayla then turned to him and gave a small bow of her head, not formal this time, but sincere. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing I deserved freedom." Armand shook his head lightly. "Everyone deserves freedom, Kayla." She looked at him for a long moment as if trying to understand how someone could think like that. Shoulders finally relaxed a little, and Armand saw the first sign of comfort on her face. For the first time in a long while, she looked like she could breathe. Armand stepped back to let her settle, knowing she needed space. Kayla walked toward the small seating area, running her fingers lightly along the edge of a chair. She sat down. Slowly, her posture still disciplined, but her eyes softer now. This was only the beginning for her. She was no longer the warrior who followed orders without question. She was no longer the unwanted traveler who lost everything. She was a person starting unlearning freedom, learning trust, and learning what it meant to be seen as more than her past. And Armand, without realizing it, had become the first person to offer her that chance. Kayla spent her first night on Armand's ship sitting quietly near the small window that showed stars drifting past. She barely slept. Not because she was afraid, but because freedom felt new and unfamiliar. For so long, she had lived under strict rules, orders, and expectations. Now, for the first time, there was silence, gentle, peaceful silence. Armand checked on her in the morning and found her still sitting upright, her posture straight, her hands folded neatly. He smiled softly and walked closer. "You didn't sleep, did you?" he asked kindly. Kayla blinked once. "Rest is easier when the mind is calm. Mine is still learning to be calm." Armand nodded thoughtfully. "You can take your time. There's no hurry for anything." Kayla looked at him with a curious expression, as if trying to understand what it felt like to live without pressure. "You speak of time as if it is gentle," she said. "I've always thought of it as something strict." "Maybe it can be gentle now," Armand said with a small smile. Kayla didn't reply, but she looked outside at the stars again. Slowly, her shoulders relaxed, Armand prepared a simple breakfast and placed it on the table. Kayla approached the food carefully, observing the dishes as if they were unfamiliar. She touched nothing until Armand encouraged her. "You can eat anything you like," he said. "Nothing here is restricted." She nodded and took small bites, thoughtful with every taste. After eating quietly, she stood up and began looking around the small ship, exploring it with patient curiosity. She touched the walls, examined the control panels from a respectful distance, and observed the storage compartments. "You can open things, Kayla," Armand said, with a soft laugh. "You don't need permission." She paused and then nodded, gently opening a few panels to understand their purpose. Everything she did carried a sense of discipline, as though every movement had been practiced for years. Armand watched her with interest. He realized that, even though she was free now, her habits were the result of a lifetime of training. Later that morning, Armand needed to check the ship's engine functions. To his surprise, Kayla followed him and observed the tools he used. She didn't interrupt, but she watched closely, memorizing each step. After a while, she finally spoke. "Your fuel stabilizer is misaligned by 2 degrees," she said softly. Armand turned around in surprise. "You can tell that just by looking." Kayla nodded. "My training included understanding machinery, navigation, and energy systems. We learned to recognize small details," Armand smiled. "Can you show me?" She stepped forward with slow confidence, picked up a small tool, and adjusted the stabilizer with careful precision. The engine's sound softened instantly, becoming smoother. Armin was impressed. You really know a lot. Kayla lowered her eyes modestly. It was part of my duty, Armin said warmly. You're welcome to help with anything here. Only if you want to. She looked at him for a moment before nodding. I would like to be useful. You don't need to prove anything, Armand replied gently. You're free to do things because you enjoy them, not because you have to. His words surprised her. She paused, as if absorbing a new idea she had never considered before. Enjoy, she repeated quietly, as though testing the word. I am not sure I know what I enjoy. Well, Armin said cheerfully, we can figure it out together. Over the next few days, Kayla slowly began adjusting to her new life on the ship. She watched Armand handle navigation and began asking questions, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to understand. Her curiosity grew, and she seemed more relaxed each day. She also started repairing small parts of the ship on her own. She fixed a loose panel near the entrance. She recalibrated the oxygen sensors. She reorganized the storage areas with impressive efficiency. None of it was done out of obligation. Every task she completed seemed to give her a sense of quiet purpose. One afternoon, as Armand rested, he heard soft movements coming from the lower deck. Curious. He followed the sound and discovered Kayla carefully polishing a metal tool panel. You don't have to do all this, he said kindly. Kayla straightened up. I know, she said softly, but it feels peaceful. Armand smiled. Then I'm glad. She nodded and continued working. For the first time since arriving, she looked genuinely at ease. Later that evening, they sat together near the window again. The stars looked different tonight, brighter, warmer somehow. Kayla, Armand said gently. I want to understand something. She turned to him, her expression calm. When you lived with your people, were you allowed to rest? Or enjoy simple things like this? Kayla hesitated. There was rest, she said slowly. But it was not like this. There was no time for reflection. Every day had purpose. Every moment had rules. And now? Armin asked. How does this feel? Kayla looked outside for a long moment before answering. Quiet, she said, and safe. I cannot remember the last time I felt that. Armand nodded, feeling grateful that he could give her a place where she felt secure. As days passed, Kayla began opening up more. She started sharing small pieces of her past, not the painful parts, but simple memories. She spoke about training sessions she enjoyed, landscapes from her home planet, stories about traveling with her unit. Armand noticed she often avoided the parts that hurt, so he never pushed her. He let her share at her own pace. One day, while they were checking the ship's system files, Kayla paused suddenly. Her hands froze above the console. Armand saw her eyes narrow slightly, as if she sensed something. Is something wrong? He asked. Kayla shook her head. No, I am only remembering something. A lesson. What kind of lesson? Armand asked. She looked at him with calm seriousness. To never let my guard down completely. Armand understood. You can relax here, he said gently. No one will harm you. She studied his face, her expression softening. I am trying, she whispered. It is difficult to unlearn old ways, Armand nodded. Take your time. Kayla gave a small, thoughtful nod, then returned to the task. Armand admired how much effort she put into adjusting to a new life. Even simple things like resting or speaking openly were new to her. That night, Kayla surprised Armand by sitting beside him while he worked. Instead of keeping her distance like before, Armand, she said quietly. Yes. Thank you for your patience, he smiled warmly. It's easy to be patient with someone who's trying so hard. Kayla looked at him with eyes full of gratitude, not dramatic, but deep and sincere. I want to help you, she said. Not because I must, because it feels right. Armand nodded softly. Then we'll help each other. Kayla gave a tiny, almost invisible smile, a real one. It was the first time Armand had seen her smile since they met. The ship felt different after that, lighter, warmer, as if a quiet friendship was growing between them. They began sharing meals together, talking more and even laughing softly at small things Kayla didn't understand at first. She was learning how to live. Again, Armin was learning how to support someone who had lost everything. And though neither of them knew it yet, their calm days together were only the beginning of a much larger journey, one that would test their trust, their courage, and the new bond they were slowly building. Days passed peacefully on Armin's ship as Kayla grew more comfortable with her new life. She still followed her disciplined habits, but she no longer looked tense every moment. She spoke more, asked questions, and sometimes even shared quiet stories from her past. Armin enjoyed these conversations, not because he needed answers, but because he liked seeing Kayla slowly open her heart. But peace never lasts forever. And slowly, small signs began to appear that something was changing around them. It started with the ship's scanner. Armin was adjusting the navigation map when the system suddenly flashed a faint alert. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was just a short signal, almost easy to ignore. Armin frowned and tapped the screen. "That's strange," he muttered softly. Kayla looked up from the small device she was repairing. "What happened?" Armin pointed to the screen. A ship passed closer than usual. Nothing serious. But the scanner registered the same energy signature twice. Kayla walked over and studied the data. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "That energy reading is familiar," she said. Armin glanced at her. "Familiar how?" Kayla took a slow breath. "My former people use a similar energy pattern." Armin paused. "You think they're following us?" Kayla shook her head slightly. "I do not know. But I learned long ago that small signs are never meaningless." Armin went silent. He trusted her instincts. She had spent years training, observing, and understanding patterns. If she felt something was wrong, then he believed her. For the next 2 days, things seemed normal again. They traveled through calm space. Kayla continued repairing parts of the ship and learning new tasks. Armin showed her how to use the control panel, and she picked it up quickly. Sometimes when she wasn't aware of it, she even smiled softly at small jokes he made. But then, the second sign appeared. Armin woke early and went to the cockpit to begin a routine system check. Kayla joined him moments later, alert as always. When she looked at the main screen, her expression changed instantly. "Armin," she said quietly, "look." A faint signal blinked at the edge of the radar. It was very small, like a distant echo, but Kayla recognized it instantly. "It is the same signature," she whispered. "It has returned," Armin frowned. "Maybe it's coincidence." Kayla shook her head gently. "Coincidence does not return twice at the same place." Armin sighed. "If they're following us, what do they want?" Kayla looked down, her eyes thoughtful. "Some of my people believed I knew information I never shared. Others feared I might speak the truth after losing my position. They may have tracked me to prevent that." Armin felt a quiet heaviness growing in his chest. "You saved people. Why would they fear you?" Kayla looked at him with calm honesty. "Sometimes those who protect others are seen as threats by those who want control." Armin didn't reply. He could see how deeply those words came from her experience. For the rest of the day, Kayla was more alert. She moved quietly through the ship, checking small systems and studying the radar every hour. Armin watched her closely. He didn't want her to worry, but he respected her instincts. That evening, as the ship cruised through a calm region of space, Kayla stood near the window. Her posture straight again like the warrior she once was. Armin approached her. "Are you okay?" She nodded. "I am thinking about what?" She turned slowly toward him. "If they are truly following us, then you are in danger because of me." Armin frowned. "Kayla, you're not a danger. You're someone who needed help. I won't regret helping you." Her voice softened. "But if my past brings trouble to your life, then I should not stay." Armin stepped forward. "No. We don't run from problems, we solve them together." Kayla looked at him, surprised by his certainty. "Together," she repeated quietly. "Yes," Armin said firmly. "Together." Slowly. A calm understanding settled between them. Kayla breathed deeply, something she rarely did when she felt defensive. The next morning brought the third sign. The radar beeped, loudly, not softly this time, indicating a ship approaching quickly from behind. Armin rushed to the controls, while Kayla stood beside him. Eyes steady, a large vessel appeared on the scanner, its energy reading unmistakable. Kayla spoke with quiet certainty. "It is them." Armand kept his voice steady. "What do they want with you?" Kayla's eyes lowered. "They want to take me back. Not to restore me, but to silence me." Armand's heart tightened. He looked at her with determination. "I won't let that happen." Kayla turned to him slowly. "This is not your fight." "It became my fight the moment I chose to help you," Armand said. For a moment, Kayla simply stared at him. In her eyes, he could see gratitude mixed with disbelief. She wasn't used to someone standing beside her not without, expecting something in return. Armand began adjusting the ship's course. "We can avoid them if we change direction and fly into the nebula. The scanners won't work well in there." Kayla nodded. "It is risky, but it gives us a chance." Armin steered the ship toward the glowing nebula, but before they entered, a communication signal flashed on the screen. A message. Kayla stiffened. Armand looked at her. "Should I open it?" She took a slow breath. "Yes, we need to know their intention." Armand tapped the panel. A calm, emotionless voice filled the cockpit. "You are carrying someone who belongs to us. Release her. You cannot protect her." The message ended. Armand clenched his jaw. "Belongs?" "Kayla is not an object." Kayla looked down. "This is what they believe. That is why I could not stay with them." Armand's voice was firm. "I won't give you up." Kayla turned to him with a gentle, almost fragile expression. "Armand, you do not understand how much risk you take." "I do," he replied softly. "But some people deserve to be protected." Kayla's eyes softened. No one had ever said something like that to her before. Armand quickly programmed a diversion route. "If we enter the nebula now, their scanners won't track us." Kayla nodded and moved to the other side of the cockpit, helping him with controls. Despite the tension, they worked together smoothly like they had been a team for years. The ship entered the bright, misty nebula. Particles surrounded them, making the view outside glow softly. The radar signals faded, replaced by gentle crackles. For a moment, silence filled the cockpit. Kayla finally spoke. "Armin, I never expected anyone to stand with me." Armin smiled softly without looking away from the controls. "Well, you've got me." She looked at him, her eyes filled with emotion she rarely showed. "Thank you. You do not know what that means to me." Automone turned slightly toward her. "I'll understand it someday." Kayla lowered her gaze, her voice gentle. "You already understand more than most." The ship moved deeper into the nebula, safely hidden from the pursuers. But both of them knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something larger. Challenge that would test both Kayla's past and their growing trust. The danger was real, but so was the bond forming between them, and neither of them planned to run away from it. Everything changed the moment the attackers appeared on Armin's ship screen. Kayla had been expecting this day, but she had hoped it would come later, when she was stronger, when she could protect Armin better, and when she could finally face the truth of her past without hesitation. But life seldom followed perfect timing, and now the threat stood directly in front of them. Armand watched the screen carefully, his eyes full of worry, while Kayla stood beside him, her posture steady and calm. She looked like a warrior again, but this time her heart was not fighting for pride or rank. She was fighting for the first real home she had found in a long time. Armin asked her one more time if she wanted him to drop her off somewhere safe. He told her he would respect whatever choice she made. But Kayla shook her head softly, saying she would not run anymore. She explained that running had only created more problems for her and had trapped her in fear. Armand had given her freedom, trust, and safety, things she had forgotten existed. Leaving him behind now would be worse than facing her old enemies. She told him she wanted to stay, and this time, she would not survive for herself alone, but for both of them. The enemy ship sent a signal, demanding Kayla be turned over. Their voices sounded firm, but there was something hidden beneath their tone fear. They were afraid of Kella's return because she possessed knowledge they had tried to bury. She knew the truth behind the political betrayal that led to her exile. She had witnessed the planning of a secret operation that could have endangered many innocent lives. Instead of stopping that plan, a small group of officers chose to silence her by removing her from her rank. When she refused to keep quiet, they pushed her away, marking her as a danger to her own people. They hoped she would disappear forever, and for a while she almost did. Now she stood tall, no longer silent. Armand listened to every word she explained and promised he would help her reveal the truth. Kayla felt a strange comfort in knowing she did not have to face this alone. She had always carried burdens on her own shoulders, believing that asking for support would make her appear weak. Armin, however, taught her something she had never learned. Having someone beside you did not make you weak. It made you stronger. As the enemy ship grew closer, Armin and Kayla began preparing evidence stored inside her memory device. It contained recordings and messages she had secretly saved during her old missions, information that proved she had been betrayed by powerful people who wanted to hide their mistakes. Armand transferred the files into the ship's communication system, ready to broadcast them if necessary. The enemy commander contacted them again. He looked angry, but his eyes held the same uneasy expression Kayla had seen the day he ordered her exile. He warned Armand to hand her over or face consequences. Armand remained calm and simply replied that Kayla was not alone anymore and that truth could not be hidden forever. The commander hesitated, surprised by Armand's courage. Perhaps he had expected fear or maybe obedience, but Armand's firm voice made him realize the situation had changed. Kayla stepped forward, showing her face on the communication screen. She spoke in a clear, steady tone. She reminded the commander of the day she tried to stop the secret operation and how she was blamed for speaking up. She asked him directly why he still wanted to chase her when the truth was already known to those involved. The commander tried to defend himself, but Kayla interrupted him and said she had evidence. His expression changed instantly. He knew what would happen if those files were exposed. His career, status, and control would fall apart. Armin signaled Kayla that he was ready to send the files to the higher council. If the commander attacked, the truth would be shared instantly. The commander realized he had no choice now. After a long silence, he finally lowered his voice and said he would contact the council for review. His ship slowly backed away, giving Kayla and Armand a moment to breathe. The confrontation was not over yet, but the first and most difficult step was complete. A few hours later, the council contacted them. They requested Kayla to join a formal meeting to present her side. She was nervous, but determined. Armin stayed close, giving her strength. During the meeting, Kayla explained everything with honesty and clarity. She showed the evidence, answered every question, and faced every accusation without fear. The council listened carefully. Many members were shocked to learn she had been punished for trying to protect people. After a long discussion, the council made their decision. They announced that Kayla was innocent and had been wrongly exiled. They ordered an investigation into the officers responsible for her mistreatment. They also offered to restore her position and return her title as an elite warrior. Kayla felt a strange heaviness lift from her shoulders. She had waited for justice for so long that she had almost forgotten what hope felt like. But when the council asked if she wished to return to her old rank, Kayla looked at Armand instead of answering immediately. She realized something during the long journey with him. Going back to her old life would not bring her peace. The title she once chased now felt empty compared to the quiet happiness she found on Armand's ship. For the first time, she had a life where she was respected not for her strength, but for her heart. She had a friend who treated her kindly, without expecting anything in return. She had freedom, so Kayla thanked the council, but respectfully declined the offer. She said she had chosen a different path now. The council accepted her decision and wished her well. When the meeting ended, Armin looked at her with gentle surprise. He asked if she was sure about her choice. Kayla smiled softly and explained that the day she whispered, "Please purchase me, human," she did not expect her life to change in such a big way. She had spoken those words out of fear, hoping for an escape. But she found something much greater, a place where she finally felt safe. Armin told her she was free to go wherever she wanted. She replied that she already knew where she wanted to be. She wanted to travel with him, learn more about the human world, and discover new places together. She said she felt stronger with him than she ever did alone. Armand felt a warm sensation in his chest, knowing that she chose to stay not because she needed him, but because she wanted to. Their journey was no longer about rescuing her from danger. It was about exploring life side by side, as equals who trusted each other deeply. As their ship lifted into the stars once again, Kayla stood beside Armand in the control room. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of new chances, new adventures, and new memories waiting to be made. Kayla took a slow breath, feeling peaceful for the first time in years. She had faced her past, defeated her fears, and reclaimed her dignity. But her future bright, open, and full of hope was something she chose herself. And with Armin at her side, she knew she would never have to whisper for help again. Instead, she walked forward with confidence, ready to begin the next chapter of her life.